What's going on, people? Welcome to the show. This is actually our first live version, so looking forward to that. Today, a big one. What is going on with this gold rush? It's freaking me out. I got to be honest. Gold troy ounce over $2,000. The silver now is picking up. Usually, there's a 60-to-1 ratio, and let's see where silver is today. Silver price is at silver per ounce, $28. Yeah, so 28. So call it $30. Usual ratio is 60-to-1. So arguably gold, if you think about it from a silver standpoint, valuation should be around $1,800 per troy ounce. We got it at about 2,000 or so, give or take. So arguably that means either gold's overpriced relative to silver or silver's underpriced relative to gold. My point is, it doesn't really matter. But what really matters is the general reason as to why this is happening. So the question I have is this a gold rush? And I think there's a lot of moving parts here. But when I see Ray Dalio pick up a position in gold beyond what he usually does, when I see Warren Buffett, who has historically been against gold, just not the way he likes to invest, and I see him pick up a $600 million position in Barrick Gold, which is a gold miner, one of the top 10 in the world, that draws concern, right? Now, Barrick Gold pays dividends. So part of Warren Buffett's play was to get some consistent income streams, which he's a big fan of, loves to build income streams. So he gets that with the dividend. And let's see here. Barrick Gold, ticker symbol is GOLD. I just bought some myself some time ago. The dividend yield on this bad boy is, give me symbol. Come on now. 1 second. Dividend yield. Okay, so it's actually not that great. It's about a half point. So nothing crazy, but you are getting some dividend from that. But what's interesting is the reason that they're doing this. And later this weekend, I'm going to have Stephen Roach, the professor at Yale University, and he and I are going to be spending a half an hour talking about where we see the dollar going. Is it deflation? Is it inflation? And what that means for the dollar. I think it's undoubtedly clear that both Warren Buffett and Ray Dalio, two of arguably the best investors of all time, see real risk in the dollar valuation. Now, from what I can gather, they see the risk from inflation due to the out-of-control spending. Now, I think at about $5 trillion of what sounds like it might be a $10 trillion stimulus package. And they're banking on inflation, right? And so what they're doing is they're buying gold to have what is called store of value. So you put $1 in there, backed by gold, it should retain that dollar value while the dollar loses value. But what's also interesting, and this is exactly what I've been thinking about, is Warren Buffett has sold his positions in banks. Now, why would he do that? If you think about it, he's leveraging his positions in gold to store a value as well as some dividend play. And when he thinks the company will do very well as price of gold increases, as people rush to safety in the gold, he thinks they will do quite well. But he's shorting the banks, and he's shorting the banks because of potentially one big reason, but probably two in that there is some risk in foreclosures in the COVID crisis. But I don't think that's actually what's happening. I think what he's doing is he's saying, look, if inflation occurs and these banks have a balance sheet full of loans in the 3 to 6% interest rate range, and inflation skyrockets to 7 or 8%, that spread is a loss leader for banks, meaning that if inflation hits, let's just say 6%, and their average interest rate on their balance sheet is 5%, they're going to lose 1% on their capital that was lent out to whoever was borrowing it. So he's thinking that inflation is going to hammer these banks who have given out low cost, very affordable loans, and continue to do so. And I think that's a smart play. If you're going to play the inflation game, then you have to think about, okay, well, who's going to win from inflation and who's going to suffer from inflation? I do think banks stand to lose if they don't figure out a way to essentially offer higher interest rates. And let's be honest, that's not going to happen. people were already scared pre-COVID of mortgage rates when they were increasing to 4.5%, right? So we've become addicted to this 3.5%, 4% borrowing rate, and I don't think banks are going to be increasing rates anytime soon. So it's an interesting play. When you see something like a $600 million position in a company, you have to at least wonder why. And this is exactly what I said last week when I say what I'm doing in my portfolio. Again, I play in real estate, right, as well as private money lending, and then I also have a third of my assets in what is known as the all-weather strategy by Ray Dalio. Within that strategy, a third of all of my assets are within U.S. equities. I actually think there's more risk than just simply inflation with the dollar, and so I'm actually separating that 30% to just 15% exposure to the U.S. equity market and 15% exposure to the emerging markets, where I think there's some value to be played. Now, keep in mind, 70% of the world's transactions are happening with dollars. So there's a lot of parties that may suffer from a unpredictable dollar. So, and I've been saying this since last year in my interviews with Michael Zuber and others, that dollar-denominated debt, if the debt service goes up in payments faster than the appreciation rate of local currencies, that's a problem, right? So now think about this logically, right? If you have a loan payment of $100 and the U.S. has inflation of 10%, and your currency stays flat at par value, then that 10% would mean that that debt service is cheaper. Okay, it would go down to $90, give or take, and so you'd be making more money or saving more money on those loan payments, assuming that your currency stays at par. So some of these emerging markets may stand to benefit substantially in their loans that are dollar denominated. So again, it's really important to understand how the ripple effects of a stimulus package that is consistently inflating the dollar may ripple through all the markets. So, but what this means for assets, right? So, again, we'll have a conversation this week with the Yale professor Stephen Roach about where the dollar is going, whether it is deflation or inflation. But if it's a deflationary situation where there's a lot of headwinds and even net of the stimulus, the dollar still loses value, that doesn't look good for assets. And deflation will, without a doubt, reduce assets, whether it be stocks, whether it be real estate, whether it be anything that's not backed by a gold per se, those will fall. Okay, so now conversely, if it's inflation, assets are going to increase. Stocks will increase. Real estate's going to do very well in an inflationary period. Now, the downside of that is that purchasing power goes down. So if you make $100,000 a year, inflation is 10%, right? So the $100,000 is now worth 110 in theory, if your wages also grow that fast. However, most times your wages are not going to grow at the same rate as inflation. So if inflation goes 10% and you don't grow at all, you just lost a 10% purchasing power of your salary. That's going to be a problem if you're trying to get in the market to buy equities or buy real estate. So as long as your income is increasing with inflation, you'll be okay, which it probably won't. So just consider that as well. But if you are a real estate owner, I think you have a lot of tailwinds behind you. And if this inflation picture is going to come to fruition, I think you're going to be sitting really pretty here in the next few years. So my point is, this gold rush, it seems to be real. You're seeing a lot of money flow into it. You have some of the best investors buying the gold. It does seem like silver has some additional value over gold, so consider that. But regardless, what I'm saying is you got to consider what this means for the broader markets. So look at your portfolio. Are you exposed? And if you are, think about how you'll pivot out of that situation. So that said, make sure you subscribe. We're going to have more of these upcoming live sessions, as well as more people on our show. So, and we'll go from there. So thanks everyone for chiming in. Appreciate it.